Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for May 26th, 27th, 2020. How are you doing? Well, we're in this exact sextile between Mars in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus. Now, Venus has moved to 18 degrees, in its retrograde. So it's like, okay, it's officially kind of moving back off of that square with Neptune. So we're still feeling that a little bit for the next couple of days, but it's like moving out of that square, very intense energy all throughout May of Venus before it turned retrograde and square to Neptune, after it turned retrograde, and pay very close attention to the energies, what's coming up for you, because it's going to be coming back around for resolution and understanding at the end of July when the third and final square of Venus and Neptune. And so we've got it's like 2 months away from now. And that's when maybe we're going to have some sense of what's going on. And we're in this really strange time because there's not a lot of, now that Venus is coming out of that square, we don't have a lot of square opposition energy. Jupiter is in retrograde. It's gone back to 26 degrees now. And that means it's getting closer to Pluto at 24. They come together again in July at 23 degrees. Now, keep in mind that the first Pluto Jupiter conjunction was in March when all hell broke loose, right? And it's really interesting because, so the second exact conjunction of these planets is July 6th through 9th. And so then we have Venus will turn retrograde on direct on June 25th, but not come into that third and final square with Neptune until the third week of July. So July is going to be kind of where we rehash and figure out what in the heck has happened to us. We've still got eclipses in June 2020 coming up. And so eclipses have to do with timeline alignment and things being revealed and direction. Because the eclipses happen when the nodes line up, when the sun and the moon in their path line up with the nodes. And the nodes of the moon are where the interception of the moon's orbit around the earth and the earth's orbit around the sun, where they intercept, right? So it's like crossroads. It's an opportunity to get on a more appropriate timeline. It's a time to have revealings of what's going on in your life. And this is the first set of eclipses since the North Node has moved into Gemini, the South Node into Sagittarius. So it's a big shift. And so it makes sense that right now, with Venus going deep, it's like, well, we've been feeling this Venus retrograde for so long, and we're just getting, well, we've made it a couple weeks. We have, just 4 more weeks left of this Venus retrograde, but then it's going to take a while till it gets out of shadow and has that third and final completion. But Venus going backwards, and then Mars in Pisces right now is about visiting the past, right? Because we're trying to get into Uranus and Taurus, and Uranus and Taurus is about the future. It's like, how do we infuse this physical reality with these higher frequency vibrations, right? That's the whole trick that we're in right now. I mean, really, the big picture on why this spiritual ascension and evolution is taking thousands and thousands of years is because apparently we're doing it differently, where in the past, so these souls that are drawn to this work, part of your problem is that you have this awareness within you of spiritual ascension. You've already gone through spiritual ascension probably numerous times. And yet so this is actually why you're floundering around here, not able to figure yourself out, because you're in a very low dimensional, you've squeezed yourself into this 3D reality so that you can lead the way into this spiritual process. But we're doing it differently. So in a way, some part of you knows, you have the codes for spiritual ascension, it's going to be okay. And that's kind of why you're here. You're here just to be like, hey, you guys, it's going to be okay. We're just going through spiritual ascension, right? Nobody really knows what it looks like though, because in the past, spiritual ascension is like, okay, here we go. We're coming to this next dimensional frequency. You lose your body, you get a different body. You lose, it's like you move to another world kind of thing. But this time we're doing it consciously while we stay in our bodies, like changing our physical body, changing our physical earth, changing our physical world to light. And I don't know if that makes it any easier or better to know this information, but it's kind of like, oh, it's taking a long time. Another reason why it's taking a long time is because we're trying to bring as many souls with us as possible. And that's maybe what's frustrating for these souls right now, is that you have a sense of like your purpose has to do with, it feels like your purpose has to do with waking people up to spiritual truth. And incredible frustration and energies coming up from past lives around failing in that. This has to do with the Sagittarius South Node energy. Ooh, it's really coming up because we're coming into a Sagittarius full moon eclipse, lunar eclipse on June 5th. And so it's like a blooming of this energy that's been deeply suppressed in these souls. And so right now, there's a lot of feeling of like, I need to go, I got to go do something. I got to save the world, right? And it's this frantic feeling. And yet, what do you go out there, you put yourself out there, you try to share a little bit of truth, and you come up against this like wall of just resistance and coming up against mind control and media that's control and propaganda that's gone on for so long. And it's like, then this feeling of like, what's this little me going to do about it? And then this feeling of failing in your mission, you're not doing enough, you're not stepping up to the plate. And yet that's kind of the trap, because that's who you are as a soul, and why you've struggled so much and why you even feel this way is because you're here to work on a different level. Right now, that what really puts us over the edge in this experience is a vibrational frequency. The lower matrix gets disabled not because we go and we break it down, but because we take the frequency higher. So it's almost like a trap to keep these souls feeling like you can never win. It's like a slap in your face. You come here again and again to raise the frequency of this earth. And then now just feeling like it's hopeless. You can never win against these monsters. That's how they want you to feel. That's how they pull you back down into the lower matrix. So watch for this, because there's so much going on. But this Mars in Pisces is like, maybe part of this energy is we're going back. We're stuck. This like doing the slits between the past and the future, and how long we've been here for like years. The astrology keeps speaking to this place of being straddled between the lower matrix and the higher paradigm, between the past and the future. And it's like we can't quite make the leap, And that's kind of where these souls, like that's where our work lies. You're here to lead the way. You don't know what that means. You feel alone. You feel like you're out there alone on the battlefield. It's not true. There are more than ever throughout history, what I've been shown in this evolution, there are more advanced soul Lightworker beings on the planet than ever. No wonder the propaganda machine and the control energies are at full force of mind control, right? Because there's so many Lightworkers, except for these Lightworkers all feel alone, disconnected, and like their work is not doing anything. They're never getting anywhere. But that's all part of the disease, of the distortion, of the delusion, right? And maybe that's what Mars is pulling us into. And it's like the sextile energy is really sweet. It's like a combination lock. It's like, okay, we can do this. We can figure it out. We got to go a little this way, a little that way. And so maybe that's what's going on right now, because we're in this weird suspended between time with Venus going into this retrograde and eclipse season coming. And it's just like, we know of anything, it's a very confusing time, but one thing you do know is that it's just not time to like leap forward in new directions, right? So here we sit. Except for it is time to leap forward in a new direction as far as you giving yourself permission to be at peace, to be in that higher frequency vibration, to carry the garden of the fifth dimensional program in your heart. And that takes permission. The big thing coming up with the wallowing in the past of the Mars and Pisces energy is that feeling of, that you don't deserve to feel good, that you're here to take on the pain and the suffering of humanity. And those loyalty contracts are just coming up so strong. Like all the issues we've been looking at for the past couple of years of astrology are like all on the table, right? Feeling like you're not getting anywhere. You just try and try and try and never make any progress. This just completely disconnected from who you are and your people. And all of this is on the table because of this current astrology. And yet, at some point, we got to move out of it, right? Like the tide will come in. We talked about this, the turning point. And so, how can we make the most of this moment? And now, what's coming up for a lot of these souls right now has to do with, I'm getting some clarity around the Venus retrograde, perhaps. Because and why it's so deeply affecting these souls, and is because Gemini is about a place, and all the signs are like stages of development of the human. Okay, and so Aries is the spark of like conception coming into form, right? It's like that spark of creation energy. Then Taurus is like how the plant comes into form. Everything the plant, say just metaphorically, as in development, comes in to make the body, right? So the basic building blocks of life, having what you need and the comforts of, to support you in survival. Now, Gemini is when you take that leap into figuring out who you are according to relationships, right? So the relationship with your parents, but also the sibling relationship. It rules this like, who am I according to the outside world? And we learn that by our early relationships. Now, something core is coming up, which I think could help these souls understand, like all of a sudden how you got put back here in this place where you thought you had resolved these issues, like deep feelings of disconnection from this world. But it's very interesting coming on the heels of social distance. And then for these souls, it's a very spiritual, esoteric loneliness that's coming up. And it has to do with the fact that you as an aware soul, and I've been shown this very clearly, that souls that are like maybe are just in this earth evolution, they're kind of dreaming through their developmental experience. But imagine being an awake soul, very aware as that baby, right? Like very aware to what's going on. And as that awake soul, typically you've chosen karmic situations with your parents to be able to get into deep-seated patterns through lifetimes to be able to pull them out by the roots. But across the board, these souls seem to have been like there was no spiritual presence to meet an orientation. Lucky to have just a person there actually present in their body, But even if you had that, not a spiritual receiving of who you are as a spiritual being on any level in your childhood, right? And so that has led to this deep core wound in these souls of a lack of orientation, where it's like everything inside of you says that you're here to orient to something bigger, your bigger, wider self, your bigger spiritual path, you have the codes of spiritual ascension and all that, right? And then nothing in your life, and as that very aware child, nothing could validate or reach or connect to you on that level. And it's very subtle, right? Because it's like, oh, well, I had a parent there, I had this energy, but this is an energetic thing that seems to have like not happened for these souls. And very, very rare. And this Venus retrograde in Gemini is bringing this up, because of that square to Neptune. It's looking at our orientation to the spirit, to God, to creator, right? So then going back to that South Node in Sagittarius is bringing up all this stuff around where we feel like we failed in our mission and we disconnected from God. So that's, this time, this astrology, that's really what this is all speaking to. And maybe it's like important for us to go deep into this place of disconnection from all of those relationships we tried to make work that actually are not at all available to meet us on a spiritual level, and go deep into that core wound that we may have felt in the womb or early in life, that we were dropped off in the wrong place. and finding that reconnection, to your people energetically, to your spirit, to your source, to that God self within, because I don't know anybody who's really found that connection when everything was all working for them and they had the perfect relationship and all this community, right? So we got to use this time to our advantage and use this time to go to that core wound of disorientation to spirit and get back oriented. Just every moment of every day, when you feel this intense disorientation, use it to orient back to that greater truth of who you are. And that's kind of the message of this time. There's magic here. And it takes going to that place of complete and total disconnection to find that place of connection. It's kind of like going into the desert or into the wilderness. And this situation of social distancing, and then Venus retrograde and square Neptune and Sag South Node, all of it is, for these souls, for you guys, it's about bringing you back into true spiritual orientation, which is the only reason you came here. But it's not feeling very good, but it feels like we're being called into this dark cave to find the light within our heart, and it's kind of cool. Even though you're not feeling, I feel like all of a sudden these souls are just feeling it's like the quarantine has been reestablished and we all have our helmet on. That's like that control energy keeping us from even feeling like there's one other soul out there that has some sort of spiritual aspirations or understanding, right? It's like, and but it's not true, so maybe in your conceptual mind, use the Gemini energy of being like, well, I know I've got lots of people out there and we're all working on the same thing. We're disconnected right now. But this is how I get back to connection. Because the people you want in your life, you want to find those people can resonate with you after you get to that top of the mountain place, right? And maybe if we can see this whole season as this rearranging in our orientation to our spiritual self, which is all we've ever wanted. Everything we've always wanted in our life is really about that. Because you can have all those things you think you want and still feel empty and alone inside. This is our opportunity to heal that core wound. And it's kind of a solo journey. So can we be thankful and appreciative and in gratitude as we step into this dark cave in the middle of the wilderness and be there? But we are here together. Just keep that conceptual reality, even though I am feeling and I'm seeing it in sessions really clearly, this helmet, this like quarantine energy of, oh no, you're all alone. You're all alone. You failed on your mission. What's your point? What's the point of even existing? Dark places, but that are about taking you to that core wound so that you can heal it for good. And we're in it together. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next update, and consider maybe being a part of those soul group sessions. I'll put the information to sign up below. Again, if you sign up for the first 2 eclipse soul group sessions. And the first eclipse, if you sign up for that one, I'll get you a coupon for half off the second one. It'd be great to have a cohesive group as we move into this eclipse season together. So thanks so much for being here, being you, and following the work and showing up and living and breathing and going into those places, and being brave in the wilderness. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.